Good evening, Final Fantasy community. This is Tantalus. I am Lawrence Oliva. Welcome you guys to our Opus 8 pre-release set review to get you guys ready for your pre-release event tomorrow. Kick things off, we want to go over just a couple of basic rules about the pre-release event itself. If you guys have never attended one, there are a couple of rule changes. This is a real handy image that we got from the last Opus 7 pre-release. So basically you have 6 booster packs that you're going to open. They have 12 cards in each for a total of 72 cards. Your deck has to contain at least 40 cards. In Europe, they do a no upper card limit. I think in the US it's 50 cards max. Either way, most cases you're not going to want to run more than that. It is 6 damage to win as opposed to 7, so that's definitely something to consider. You can have as many of any card as you want in your deck. So if you have 3 common standard unit cards, if you pull 6 or 7 of them, you can play all of those. And of course, if they're multi, you can have them on the field all at the same time. For your backups, you can discard any traditional color to play your backup. So you can pitch a fire card to play a 2 CP lightning backup, or a wind and a fire card to play a lightning 4 CP backup. But once they are on the field, they can only tap for that element. So you still have to pay for your forwards, your summons, and your on-card abilities like you would traditionally. And then it's usually left up to the locals, but the pre-release card that comes in there, in our case, Bahamut, it's technically not supposed to be used, but some guys will use it. Definitely makes the game more interesting. What's that? Yeah. So there you go. Just a quick set review as to the format itself. Sam, you got anything before we go into checking out some of these new cards? Right. Right. So your commons are, I believe, 7 commons in a pack. So you're getting 42 of your 72 cards as commons, right? So that's over half of your deck. Correct. Yep. Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, let's get right into it then. I'll go ahead and bring this up. If any of you haven't seen it yet, if you go to Square Enix Final Fantasy website, FFTCG.squareenixgames.com, you can go into their card section, pull up Opus 8, and you will see exactly what you're looking at right now. Full high-res images, all the card effects and everything. Right. That's exactly right. All right, so let's talk about some of these fire cards. So I feel like this set, Opus 8, I feel like it's finally getting a lot of very good fire cards, not just in constructed, but also um, for limited as well. What's your initial take? What stood out to you as some of these got revealed? Sure, sure, correct. Well, I think you bring up a good point. So you're like you said, generally going to be on three colors. You're going to have like one or two main colors that have 4 to 6 backups, and then an off color that maybe has only 2 or 3. Um, if fire is your color, you have a lot of utility. So in cards like Red Mage, for instance, when enters the field, choose a fire forward, gets haste and brave. So you're already getting a 2 CP backup, which you need, right? You're not going to be able to play a successful game in sealed without, some type of value engine, aka your backups. So just the fact that if you're running fire backups, you probably have fire forwards, and the fact that it can gain haste and brave. Um, there are a couple of forwards worth mentioning. Um, whether it's just something very simple like a 2 CP warrior, um, you're turn one hasting in for 1 damage. It's a little bit better in sealed because you only have to go to 6. And there's definitely a lot of control cards in this set. Right. Sure, sure. Right. And my main reason for bringing him up was this guy right here. Ever since he was revealed about a month or so ago, he's been talked highly of, especially in a limited format, because when he deals damage, it's double damage. So you're essentially 2 damage in off the rip. Yeah. And I think it's worth noting too that when you take 2 damage at once, same way you would take damage to yourself when you cast like a Zodiark, all the damage flips, and then you uh, resolve each EX burst in order. So if you do 2 in a row, or 2 damage rather, your opponent would flip 2 and then do that in sequence. So there's no, it's actually beneficial to your opponent because they can kind of sequence how they want, different things to go. Um, yeah, 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 right. Right. And I think it goes without being said that you almost autoplay all your summons, especially if they're on color. Um, yeah, no, definitely the removal summons. Yeah, let me backtrack. Definitely removal summons. Right. Right. Well, and that's a great point that you bring up. So, most decks are gonna run, let's just throw a number out there, 14 backups. And if you get lucky and you get 6 backups in one color, um, and maybe 4 and 4, I mean, realistically, you're gonna play like 2 or 3 fire backups, and then 1 and 1 or 2 and 1 of your other colors. So just to further your point, yeah, yeah, that's garbage. That's exactly right. Right, right. And she's technically a 9K blocker, right? Because she can block, tap, deal 2K, or actually a 10K. Yeah, she'll die, but to trade up to a 10K, like that's actually pretty good. Yep. I know we're not going to spend too much time on Legends, but I do want to talk about this Cloud. Only because as the game progresses and you incur more damage, he gets better. So it's 3K damage plus 1K more for each damage you've received. But he also, being a 9K forward, is threatening. And when he goes to the break zone, you can just take the top 10 cards of your deck and remove them from game to return them dull to get the effect again. So the reason you're going to play the full 50. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. Absolutely, absolutely. So, but yeah, definitely, I would love to pull him. I would love to play him. Yeah, I'm definitely going to 50 cards. And if the little, yeah, yeah, for sure. You got some other decent standard unit cards like Samurai, 3 and 5 damage, Brave and 1K. Just you need solid cards in your deck. 8 and 9K forwards. Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot as we go through all the elements. There's a lot of monsters in this set, and I just want to caution people not to get into any kind of traps because while some of the monsters are very potent, for instance, you can literally pay 1 to make potentially 1 or 2 different forwards, anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6K, on your turn. Um, it sounds really good and it is good, but you know you're sacrificing either premium removal summon slots or just raw bodies. And a lot of times you'll find that if you don't put enough forwards in your deck, you're not gonna do anything. You're just gonna get overwhelmed by your opponent because your removal is that limited. He is a trap. But if I got 20 or 30 fire cards and I'm a little lacking on summons, because sometimes that happens, you know, it at least helps the mass amount of forwards you have in your deck do a little bit more. But other than that, I'd completely stay away from him. I think a card like March is pretty good too, especially since he's a rare, because you get to look at their top 5, and it's a fire character. So as long as you have, I would say, out of a 40 card deck, if you had 12 to 15 fire cards in there, you definitely run him. If you have less than 8, it makes it hard, because he is only a 5k body. But yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's bad. That is really bad. That is really bad. The reason I mentioned cards like him though, and I'll skim down to it real quick and we'll just look at it for a second. But cards like this Archangel, so she can't be blocked by forwards with 7k or more power. So there are some different cards in this set that if your opponent plays him and all of your forwards are 7k or more, you just pretty much lose to that card unless you have decent removal. So, just because a card isn't like an 8 or 9k, you know, look at what your deck is overall trying to do, but also consider what your opponent may have. So as soon as you see those win backups slam down, you're like, okay, if they got that arc, I gotta watch because if I don't have sub 7k blockers, they're probably just gonna beat me unless I have a lot of haste. Real tough spot. Uh huh. It really is though. Yeah. Yeah, it is very good. It is very good. I'd like to talk about this VV because I actually like him a lot. Everybody that knows me knows I'm a big 9 title deck guy, and obviously he fits in there. But if for some reason, yeah, I love the Amato art, the style. I mean, all of them. They're all gorgeous. Um, but if for some reason you do open a healthy amount of 9 characters, I think you just have to put him in your deck because the potential to get 7 or 10k off just seems ludicrous to me off of a 1. and it's a little guy on the field still. Yeah, no, for sure. And it's very CP efficient if you did go in with like a red mage that we talked about earlier. It's just like, okay, I hit you for a damage and I still have a 2k blocker and I killed your guy, and like that just feels really bad that you only paid 3 CP for all that. I think, and I'm not usually a fire player in limited at all, but I do like this, and this is another card. The reason why, I mean, it's just 99% of the forwards can't block this turn. She is very disgusting in 14. No spoilers are given, but she's just as disgusting in this game. So I'm Yeah, 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 yeah. She's very ruthless. She's very evil. Right. I think it's worth being I think it's worth being said that you kind of you want to take advantage of that on the entry. I mean, it's okay to threaten it on the attack, and in order to do that, you have to have two fire backups down. You know what I mean? Or just an extra fire card in hand. Yeah, yeah. And there's another fire card that when he attacks. Oh, Xenos. He is a hero, but if you do get Xenos with Rain, when he deals damage, it's 5k. So either they're forced to block an 8k or potentially 10k if they have a Warrior of Light down. Once that 5k gets in, or if you combo it with Yosetsu, um, the 5k, and then you swing with Rain, pay the 1, and boom, there's 8k. Um, Very aggressive. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I can kind of see him as a snow, in a way, but just be aware, if you do have a couple of him in your deck, not only is he only he's unique play, so you can't play another one. Um, it's attacking forwards, so your forward is considered attacking until the damage step resolves. So once that damage step resolves, your forward loses 3k power. So even if you swung with like a 6k and they blocked with, I don't know, like an 8k or 7k, your guy's gonna die at the damage step anyway. So it almost doesn't matter unless you just have really bad pulls and you have a lot of little guys, then it's fine. Yeah, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. You want to move on to ice? So yes, I am super on ice. I generally like to run ice and water and either lightning. Go ahead. They're good. hmm There's not a ton. I can just tell you this because I know you haven't seen a lot of the set. There's not a ton of activate forward effects in the set right off, so um, it's gonna slow you down tremendously. And I think it's worth noting too. We talked about that Yosetsu or whatever her name is. She can't target him, so he is literally a solid 9k blocker, and he's just gonna sit there and just prevent your opponent from getting through. Yeah, for sure. No, you just pay the ice. Well, he has to attack, don't forget, so you have to commit to that ice. Yeah. Yeah, you don't just play it, right? You generally play it when you have a decent board because you don't mind swinging him in, because if he's your only forward, I mean that leaves you pretty vulnerable. So you play him as forward 2 or 3, and he's pretty good. Um, we can talk about Imperio real quick. Um, he doesn't really do anything unless you have light or dark forwards, and if you do, they're legends. So like if you know, and he's a hero. So if you pull him and your light or dark forward, then you probably play him because you're not gonna have two. Yeah, you're not pull you're not pulling both light and dark legends. You might though. I would love for somebody to prove me wrong and be like, look at this, and you know, slam them both out. Yeah, 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 for sure. Pretty much the whole game. Like I would probably overpay. Well, I don't know if I'd overpay turn one, but he's going down pretty early, and I'm gonna start dulling and freezing every turn. Ooh, slow him down tremendously. Yep, yep. Yeah, and if your opponent like plays like even two backups, like let's say they're on fire and earth, and they discarded a fire and earth card, you're like, well, boy, I can, you know, I can literally lock them out of that one color, and they might not be able to play that card in hand for 2 turns, 4 turns. I mean, they might not even see a fire card the rest of the game, depending on how many they run. So yeah, it can be really, it's pretty brutal. Yeah, the color lock is brutal in this. Um, Um, yeah, yeah. I do like the mask though. It's just a standard searcher, but there is a fair amount. And when I say a fair amount, I want to say at least 10 or 12 uh, FFL targets. They're all very good targets. Yes. You play it. For sure. I'm gonna skip over a couple of these backups because they're either like reprints or we have cards that are similar to it. This card, it seems very interesting. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, and I mean, if you pull 8 ice backups, like, yeah, I'm auto including her just because, like, that effect is just so powerful. It's insane. And speaking of powerful, this is probably my favorite summon from this set. It just seems so ridiculous. Up to insane. Yeah, there's only a few. Well, it's kind of a good. Yeah, I mean it's almost like, the old turbo discard, right? Like you're just waiting for the Shiva, the 2 CP Shiva, to swing through your opponent and win. Like if you're at 4 or 5 damage, or even 3 if you have a decent forward board, and you just top deck the Shiva, it's like play Shiva win. I mean, it's literally I win. Yes. Yep. Yep. And who literally wants to have like 4, 5, 6 forwards on board? Like you really don't. But yeah, yeah. If I see ice, I'm probably not gonna play any backups. Just slam down a bunch of forwards and just aggro the hell out of you, because like I'm gonna lose the late game. Like there's just no way. Yeah, disgusting. Yeah. Yeah. That, or you just hold answers, right? If you draw into like 2 or 3 summons, you just hold them. You hold them all game until you see the Shiva, and then boom, you unload, because you need that kind of answer to that card in order to not lose the game. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, there's a lot of monsters that are like traps, and I feel like he's kind of a trap because, yeah, because you can just play out your hand and just, I'm not really worried, because you don't want to pay 4 for him, right? So it's not going to come out for a few turns. Um, most people don't keep large hand sizes anyway, so it's just not worth it in my opinion. We're going to be posting this on our YouTube channel, and I'll put the link in our US group as well, so that way you can go back and look at it. Um, Most of these are pretty good. Setzer lets you choose a 6 forward in your break zone on an EX. So if you got a couple of 6 forwards, yeah. And hope you don't see him turn 1. I do like this time mage though, um, because you're running a lot of janky synergies in limited, right? And you have all these different colors, and you know maybe you just keep drawing the same 2 colors, and you're like, boy, I really wish I could cast this lightning summon. I can't, effing do anything with it. And then all of a sudden you draw into your time age, and it's like, oh, well, I can just throw that down, discard my lightning if there's a relevant forward of the same cost, and then all those forwards dull and freeze. Obviously, you have to watch your own. Yeah. So you just have to kind of watch which forward you have. But he is on curve too, which seems pretty ridiculous for that effect. Even though he hits your own forwards, because like, oh, he doesn't. Oh, opponent controls. So that's there's another top deck Shiva for you. That's all you need. 1 is great because it's almost like Genesis. 2 is like, oh man, that's like you're essentially paying for a little orphan without the ice condition. Like that's insane. Absolutely insane. This little this little guy, we got a reprint in Mateus. It's an EX. probably just include it. Um, I like this little guy though. I think Thaumaturge is come back with a vengeance. That's the way I read him, at least. Square said we're not getting rid of Thom. We're gonna just recreate him. Yeah. Yep. Right. And two, like in the late game, like if your opponent has a small hand size, like 1 or 2 cards, and they have 5 active backups and just pass, like sometimes you're like, yeah, they probably didn't have anything in their hand to play anyway. But the fact that you can just dull all their backups by just paying 2 and then say, okay, now I'm gonna do my plays for that turn, like if you have a pretty good board state like that, not having to worry about an opponent's answer, like I don't think there's any really good or relevant 2 CP or less summons. There's a couple that we'll talk about in like water and earth, but other than that, like most of the summons are like 3 and 4 CP. So if they have a small hand size, like that can be pretty relevant, and it's all about, all the cards are new. Your opponent's not thinking about all these different things, and if you just slam that down out of nowhere, like they're gonna remember that it discards. They might remember that it freezes, but then the dual backups they're not gonna remember. So it's just trying to take advantage of all the different effects of your cards. Um, I think you just play Dark Fina, right? It's a legend. You're gonna play her. Get your removal or cast it. Yeah, right, right. Yep, it's field or attack, so yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I feel like exactly like you said, like just the fact that you can reoccur that for 1 fire CP every turn, I get to dull and freeze something. Good night. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Um, let's go in. It's 2 CP dull freeze on entry, and then you can immediately make them discard. So I think it's a late game play. Um, you want to minimize what your opponent can do, so you don't want that guy to block per se. You don't freeze it. They got a couple of cards in hand. You get rid of one, limits what they can actually do to respond before you can actually play out your turn. So it's almost a trap. It's not like Golem. Yeah, yeah, for sure. About wins, so we talked about Archangel before, but yeah, I definitely think as long as you get 3, obviously you want as many as you want if it's one of your colors, but if you get 3 win backups, you almost play that thing. Like you need this card. To me, I mean, I'm playing it. As long as I have cards to play it, I'm playing it. Because there's not that many sub 7K forwards out there. And then the fact, but if you're heavy wind, it just says, well, you can't choose me by summons or abilities this turn. Yeah, right. And I feel like wind it might be as good as, like, say, Ice, but I feel like it's a little bit weaker, just um, the breadth of cards overall as we get into it. Where you may not want to play Wind, but if it's like your second or third color and you have a decent amount of backups, like that's definitely an auto include in my opinion. Yeah, 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 for sure. Well, it's four or more. You don't think it's worth it? Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's completely fair. So this wall trill is interesting. So I'm gonna jump down real quick and pull up this guy. So this lets you search FFCC backup and add it to your hand for 4. So searching a backup or playing a backup to search a backup is fantastic. And it just so happens that its brother or whatever, I never played Crystal Chronicles, but they look the same. So it's searching for a 2 CP backup, so you can technically play them both in the same turn if you have the proper colors, which is great. And then when he enters the field, you can take 2 cards and put them to the bottom of your deck, and then draw the same number of cards. And it's up to 2, so it's kind of like a pseudo Artemisian effect with 1 or 2 cards. And then yeah, yeah, he is actually really good. And then if for some reason you just don't need the wind, or you're trying to make room for a better backup, when you're at 4 or 5 backups, then you can just put him in the break zone, draw a card, and then put a card at the bottom. So just for that cycling effect and the fact that he's searchable, it just like I would like to play wind as a second or third color uh, in sealed. I mean, it just seems really good. Yeah, it's always good, especially when you're trying to draw for colors for days. It's like, where's my Earth CP? Where's my Wind CP? Where's this? Where's that? That's pretty good. Well, I'd like to talk about him real quick because there's a lot of standard unit forwards, and there has no colors or restrictions or anything. So when you play that forward, you activate 2 backups. So as long as you have 3 to 4 or 5 backups down, all of your standard unit forwards are minus 2 CP. So that's really good. Also, if you have activate abilities off of your backups that get multi-use, then that's something to consider too. I haven't looked through the whole set for that. But like use an active ability, then you pay your costs to play your standard unit, and then you activate that backup with that activate ability to use it again. And then the attack effect is fine. It's decent, and he's on curve, so that's good. If you do run him, you just want to be aware of Xenos. We talked about him because he gets like 2k. He's like 10k haste and brave when Warrior Lights out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Um, we can talk about Onion Knight. So he turns on essentially at 3 and 5 damage. So you can activate 2 backups you control if you are at 3, and then if you're at 5, it's all backups. So, mhm. And if you're playing him at 5 damage, that's not helping you win per se. Yeah. Right. Right. I mean, you play him because he's an 8K body. If you need an 8K body, you play him, and maybe you get a little bit of effects. If you don't need an 8K body, then you don't play him. Right. Right. For sure. Garuda's the same. It's all the yeah. It is character though, where it's not just backup, but it's low damage for high cost. Yep. Yep. Thief isn't bad. In limited, it suffers a lot because there's no way your opponent's just playing one or two colors. They're gonna be at three or four. So, I mean, unless I don't know, I can't even recommend it. Like, I'd like to say unless you need the win CP backup, you play it, but no, I don't really think you do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're you're playing her in yeah, I mean, it's a color fix. I think it's the only one, honestly. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you can streamline your three, you can streamline your three-color deck. You have good answers, and you slam her down. And also, take note, she is a FFCC backup. We talked about this. So the fact that you can search her out with this dude, the 4 CP, yeah, yeah. So the fact that you can tutor her out, it's like, hey, I'm at two backups. I got my color fixer. I can use her on a really great crippling play to win the game. I mean, it's just fantastic. There's no real relevant 3 CP backups to bounce. Like in constructed, I can see it wanting to bounce things, but yeah, for sure. And he is a rare, so you could pull multiple. If Big Brawl was like a straight S, I'd say, okay, that could be decent. But the fact that it's S and dull, it's like, well, I can't even attack with him now. Like, that feels pretty bad. So we're probably not playing him. Not really. Well, and she's a lot better than Thief in that sense because the cards just have to be the same type. So you have a 1 in 4 chance that whatever you turn off the top, the next card's the same thing, right? And most decks are forward heavy. So if you're at 50% of the deck, well, you have a, not technically 50, but close to 50% chance to flip it. So it's like, I think it's worth it just because you need 8K bodies and it's a standard unit, you know? And the fact that she gets synergy with Warrior of Light. So, you pay for, play Warrior of Light. You can overpay to play Selkie if you want to. You get 2 more untapped, and then you can play a 3-drop or a 2-drop or something. So there's a little bit of that wind reactivation synergy going on there. Which one? Oh, Ninja. Yep, that is Archer. Yeah, we want to talk about him. Yeah, and there's like you'll see, especially in water, there's a couple of cards that can deal with him. So you just kind of watch your opponent, or you just use it to win the game. but that removal is always just so key because there's so many cards that have, when you enters the break zone. Right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. We talked about this card. I think this is the MVP of backups in this set, just because it searches out, multiple win backups, including Charlotta. I think there's a couple of other Crystal Chronicle backups. I think maybe an Earth. So like, especially if they're your colors, I think that card is fantastic. Just because you need that initial ramp. It's always hard to ramp in limited. It's just too expensive. And it's just ultimately what it is. Yeah, I think he only goes in fire just because of that splash damage. Yeah, she's not as good in limited as she is in constructed, but I'd still give her like a 9.9 in limited. Potentially like 2. Yeah, I mean, and the effects are just so good. Like you're playing her. Um, they share the same name, but I think this one is still playable. It's it's really good because we talked about a lot of ice cards that were just very devastating. So like you could follow up on your turn when your forwards unfreeze, play her, and you activate a win forward that you have. But also when she leaves, it just activates any character, so you can activate one of your other forwards. Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's exactly right. There's not. Let me take a look real quick. Yeah, so there's only Death Gaze as a target for his break zone effect. Um, but if you get it, you get to pull Death Gaze from your break zone to the field, and you get his ability. So that seems pretty sick. Um, no, if I have 2, I might, just because it's gonna feel really good. In chapters, yeah, yeah. Draw a card. Yeah, yep, yep. No, I think it was if you if your opponent plays an ability or a summon that makes you discard a card, I think you draw a card instead. I think is what it was. I think it was a replacement effect. I'll have to go back and find it, but she's yeah, and she's semi-playable. I think a lot of people are gonna try and make some kind of monster thing work. She just outright, yeah. hmm Yuffie's good in her own right, but it's gonna be hard to get 3 Cat 7 characters. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Not great. Um, Archer's on curve 3/7. It's decent. It is a nuke, but I don't really want to sack my forward to just deal something 10k. There's not that many like just overpowering forwards that you can't deal with. Um, yeah, yeah. I can see it as kind of like a game closer. Like you block and either trade or trick in something to kill that blocker, and then use the ability to kill something else, and then like okay, now I win. If you have no more forwards, like it's a little one-sided, but I think it's fine if you're on wind already. And I'll probably play this card if I don't have any wind cards in my deck. Yeah, he's cool. He's good. Yep, for sure. I like this little dude, man. Like he just seems really cool. And like the fact that like your opponent's already attacked you, like you for 2 CP, you just play this little dude, and then like on yeah, yeah, and then on the end of your opponent's turn, the guy just dies. Like okay, for 2, a lot, right? Yeah, no, for sure. And he even complements some of the ice cards we talked about. So like you just keep delaying your opponent's forwards, and then eventually when they like, oh, I get to reactivate it, it's like, oh, it's dead. So um, Arden's a legend. We don't have to spend a lot of time on him. He's pretty broken in limited, I feel like magic term indestructible, right? And then he just like pokes every turn for 9k brave. Yeah, you just rush it down. It, right. And it's just the one character, so like I can have 3 forwards swing through him just for the one character. And there's like so many, like you could have like a couple of monsters, and like if certain monsters just aren't relevant, or say you're running a fire build with like I don't know, the lava spider, like lava spider's not gonna do anything to get you through Arden, but guess what, you just get rid of it, only costs you 1 anyway, and then boom, there's 2 or 3 damage. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, no, because it's break it. Yeah, yeah. So it doesn't work. Yeah. You're playing Earth, and you play him as backup 5, and he's great. If you play him as backup 3, he's okay. So you know, yeah, yeah, for sure. Like he's not like Minfilia. Like he's terrible playing out of hand. So yeah, yeah. Which sucks because you really need to get some backups down. So like if you open a hand and he's your only like main backup, it's like boy, yeah, like boy, I want to see him later on. Like you know, he's a rare. You need 2 CP backups anyway, so why not, right? So it's like a better monk. Hmm. No. Well, because you generally aren't going to play more than 2 Earth backups, and if you don't, which, like I said, you're not going to, you're basically eliminating your Earth resource. So it's like, boy, unless this play is going to win me the game, like I'm going to, yeah, correct. Just always look at your opponent's break zone. I mean, you should be looking at it every couple of turns, because you're not going to remember all the cards they're discarding and what they do and everything. So just kind of browse through it every couple of turns and just kind of see what their game plan is. And if she's in there, just watch it. He does. Yep. We'll get to it in a sec. Well, and even the S, like you have to have 2 to 3 Ignis, and then you have to have probably, I don't know, like at least 3 or 4 or 6 other 15 forwards, and like they're all rares and heroes. So yeah, you probably don't play it. Yeah, definitely a trap. Just watch them. Um, I'm just not a fan of 5 CP backups in general in limited. Um, the effect's kind of relevant, but feels bad if like your opponent has a activate trick and you just miss. They reprinted Fairy. Yeah. So yeah, I'm probably not playing it. It's okay. Yeah, that's exactly right. You want to turn it off 3 backups, obviously. So, you know, that's what it's there for. So, Gladio's good, but the other Noctis is a hero, so you can kind of play both. Yeah, it's just not gonna happen. You're not gonna get Cyclone, so it's and then you can only pay him with Earth. I probably would too. You're gonna get blown out. And then if you look at Noctis, well, hold on. If you just look at Noctis real quick, like now you reveal the top 2, and you have to have a category 15 card in there. Like how many times is that gonna miss? Like for forever? And then you're not gonna get his S either? Yeah, yeah. Not unlimited. They have their niche. I think somebody somewhere is gonna make them very good and constructed. I would stay away from all of them except, since we're on the topic, maybe Prompto. I would just play him, but like the other stuff, yeah, I would stay away unless you just need like warm bodies because for some reason your forward count's only like 14 or something. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, he seems pretty good. Yeah, and it's 4 damage or more, so you have 2 windows of opportunity to use that on damage 4 and damage 5. So where he does suffer a little bit in limited because we're not going to the full 7, it doesn't really matter because you're probably going to win if you can just get rid of a... Because there's no condition. It's just choose a guy and break it. You still with me, Sam? Okay, just making sure. Um, Glaive's interesting. There is no soul in this set, but if you do pull a Diana, I believe she's a hero in Lightning. I think you might play him if you have a handful of FFL forwards, but that's a big if because I think a lot of the FFL forwards are heroes. So, oh boy. Let me see if I can. I don't know. Let me see if I can do something. Say something. Oh.
Chat can hear me now.
I'm gonna take off my. Okay. Oh boy. Well, it's in my headset, and I've never had that problem before. But I think if I'm recording this, so I'm hoping that when I go to play it back, your voice is all intact there, and we'll be good. Sorry, guys. Um, Try it one more time.
Oh, no. Hello?
Let
Can
me
anybody
just
hear
take
me?
my headset off real quick. All right, say something.
Hey, chat, can we hear me? Oh, I think Dink's saying we're good. Okay.
Yeah, I got my speakers on my computer turned on now, so
Okay.
sorry about that, guys. That's pretty rough.
Rip, sorry.
And let's just start over.
Oh god, no. All right. Let's really hope that that's there in that recording.
T-
But yeah,
TL
Grant's insane.
TLDR, if you guys are either just joining us or you haven't heard half of what we've been saying, fire's good, ice is disgusting, wind has some really neat stuff, and don't play Final Fantasy 15. Okay, go.
Yeah, your 15 cards are pretty
They're pretty just because of the rarity, right? You have to forget about the cards, look at the rarity. You're not playing half of them. Um, and unfortunately that's it.
Yeah,
Same thing with
absolutely.
like Titan. It's Earth backups to get the power. Just not gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one CP. I just don't think this card does enough in limited.
And I know we mentioned that we weren't going to talk a lot about Legends, but I think he's definitely worth mentioning. I think he's probably top three, if not the best Legend for limited in this set.
Yeah, like I'm way high on the this Noct train, not the other Noctis. But like this dude can get tutored by the mask, as we mentioned before. But like, yeah, dude's insane.
Yeah, the double X to just get rid of something, whatever it is that's giving you problems, is pretty sick. Obviously,
The
you're not.
flexibility of hitting the monsters is so important too.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of monster removal, so that's yeah. I mean, that's completely relevant. And you're not going to use that effect to get rid of something that costs 5, because technically you have to
Well,
pay 10.
impossible.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel like a lot of the relevant like little forwards and monsters are all 2 and 3 CP. So just to
Like
always
killing
have
a
that on
lava
board.
spider with this guy feels disgusting.
Oh yeah, yeah. And just to clarify, XX is the cost number. So if you're like targeting a lava spider, it's not like 1 and 1. You just pay a straight 2. So if you tap 2 backups, that's fine, and if you discard a card, that's fine.
Wait,
Um,
is that correct? Because I
yes,
actually haven't seen any rulings for that.
yeah,
I would have actually assumed not that, just
yeah,
based on like
because
magic
there's no
rulings and
there's
how
no
this
comma,
works.
and it's all before the colon. So if it was
Okay,
X comma X, then you would have to pay it separately.
okay, yeah, I that seems fair. That seems fair.
Um, and then obviously you're not getting the S unless you're just disgusting at rips, and if you are, you deserve to win anyway. So
Yeah, I mean his first ability is also relevant.
it
He's just
is, yeah. You can
could
at
talk
least
all
play
day
some
about
mind
him.
games with your opponent and just tap
Yeah.
2 Earth and then untap them, and like, man, do I want to use that S?
So Luminous Puma though, like this dude, um, I actually am pretty keen on him because like as we mentioned before, you only have so many forwards that you're going to play in the deck, and like you want to be able to replay your best forwards over and over again. This guy just does that for you. He's effectively like one cost to just keep playing your best forwards, and that's so good.
Right.
Like I don't know, I don't think this guy's a trap as long as you're still playing enough forwards in the deck.
Yeah, you just have to watch. He's a little tricky to play around with. Um, but I think he's less of a trap than a lot of the other, you know, seemingly good monsters that we've looked at so far.
Yeah. And then
Um,
there's the doggy summon Fenrir. I think this guy's gonna be great for constructed, pretty loose and
yeah,
limited.
it's subpar just because your light and your dark forwards are they're
Heroes
legends,
or legends, yeah.
and
Or are they legends only?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, they're legends only. Yeah, this card's
and
unplayable.
one's a base 7 that can do some tricks up and down, and the other one's a base 8, so they're not terribly hard to get rid of anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and you
Yeah,
really
just
don't
play
want to pay
Prompto if you
4
want
to get
to
rid of
exile
one card in
things.
your opponent's deck.
Yeah, just play Prompto to exile their stuff. It'll be
Yeah,
way better.
play Prompto, you're good. Um, I'd probably play Heka if I'm pretty committed to Earth, just because it's always going to be relevant for something, especially
Well,
if
so
you're
like,
already running Ice.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned it before, but like cutting people off of a color in limited could be absolutely backbreaking. Like
Yeah,
they have
for sure.
one fire backup in their deck, and that's the only one they see for the first half of the game. They're playing three color decks. You cut them off of a color. Whew, I'm so sorry for them.
And I think it's relevant for you guys to go back through the list and look at all the over 2 CP um, backups there are, because while most people are going to be attracted to those 2 CP backups, um, in certain colors there should be more 3 and 4 plus CP backups. I know Earth, we've talked about a few. Um,
Yeah, Earth's got a bunch.
there's a couple. There's a Searcher and Ice. There's a couple other ones, so it is relevant. But go back and look. That way you know whether you should keep the Hecker or not. Because if they're playing like, I don't know, like Fire Lightning or something like that, you're probably not going to have that many targets to begin with. So it's like, I don't need to hold on to this. I like this card though. I read this card earlier. Take a second and read it. I'll read it to our audience. When he enters the field, you remove 4 cards from the top of the game deck from the game, and at the end of your turn, you get to take one of them and put it back to your hand. And
Oh
then
yeah.
once all 4 are gone, then he goes to the break zone.
Oh yeah, this card's great. It's just straight card advantage.
Yeah,
And card advantage in this game is also mana advantage, which is also CP advantage, which just leads to you winning the game. It's a little slow, but obviously, if you can kind of play around with it, I think this card's great. It also kind of feeds into like Earth's usually slower but like grindier games.
right.
So this card will help you win all of those games.
And it's fairly playable in the early game, like you said, to get that advantage, or maybe you open no backups or one backup only and you don't see any for a couple turns. It's like, boy, I'm going to lose this game, and you play them early to get that extra advantage to get down to those
Yeah,
backups, whether they're in the remove pile or currently on the top of your deck. And
for
then
sure.
he's great in the late game too. You just play him off 5 backups and you gain advantage as long as the board stays kind of stable, and you should be able to push over. I don't think I'd run more than like one,
Yeah,
but
and notably, like if your opponent has removal or bounces for it, like Ventus Fury's mentioning, it like could be very bad, and you probably don't want to play it if they bounce it to your hand, and then you have to like
that's
replay it.
fair.
At that point, you're removing 8 cards out of your deck, and you may only see a few of them, so you can be
That's right.
careful. But yeah, generally, I feel like this card will stick around most of the time, and it'll do a lot of stuff.
So Marlene looks really good for constructed, but for me, your
Yeah,
Cloud is a Legend Fire or a starter. Your Tifa is a starter, and your Barret is a starter, and Aerith is a Legend. So unless you get one of those cards, I mean, obviously you just don't play the card at all,
yeah,
and it's going to be very, very hard. And she has a common, which feels really bad because you could potentially get 2 or 3 of her, and if you got good Earth cards with her too, but no targets, that's just going to feel really bad.
yeah. So the next card's interesting, Moogle Knight. Honestly, I haven't seen anything that I'm really crazy about playing this card in, except for in Fire with like Lava Spider.
Right.
Other than
He
that,
needs
like
the
I'm,
power.
he's just he's a okay blocker. Because you can just hold him back and then block like their 7Ks and
Right.
not die. But him in fire is going to be very powerful. You can combo it with Iraha, Lava, Spider. Like he's got a lot of very good synergies. I would try to play him in those colors, but just in Earth, like you'll play him, but you won't be like jumping up and down about it.
And the damage reduction is only on forward, damage by forward.
Yeah,
So it's
it's not summons. Like summons can just
that's yeah,
straight
it's
kill
pretty
him.
easy to get rid of them outside of that. So just be aware.
Yeah.
Um, Monk is we've kind of seen him before.
Well, it's a little different. You can only
It's a
use
little
it during your
different.
main phase,
Yep.
and that actually makes him pretty bad in my book. Because you want to be able to use it as like the combat trick. Being
But
able to get
there is
the
no cost requirement. It's just tap him.
That's true. That's true.
So I think because he's a 2 CP Earth, like you just have to play him if you're on
Yeah, I
Earth.
mean he's fine. I'm just
Yeah.
not like
The effect's not going to be that crippling.
yeah, exactly.
Not like it would with the older monks.
Or like Lael. Lael's
So
great.
before we talk too much about him, I just want to say there's a few cards in this set that you just pretty much play no matter what, and they're generally backups because there's no color requirements for them. And the fact that you can just pitch a card to play him or play him off 2 backups, and he has no dull requirements other than himself, I mean, if you draw this card and he is a common, you play 3, you play 5, you play whatever you get. I mean, just the fact that you can threaten to cancel your opponent's summon, and I think it's like 80 or 90% of the summons in this set, you just play him regardless. You
Yeah, I
include
think
him
it's
regardless.
everything except like Mateus. I think that's the only one that we've really kind of come across. I mean, obviously in like the legend summon, but
Yeah, well, there's a dark and a light
yeah.
hero summons that are
Oh, they're
over
heroes.
4,
Fair.
but you know we'll
Yeah,
talk about that in a
everything
minute.
else except for Mateus,
Yeah,
we've seen so far. So yeah, easy. Just play whale in all decks.
yeah, for sure.
Like, never have to worry about combat tricks or anything like that.
So I'm not
Oh.
crazy about Arc.
Is this the first bad Archangel? What?
Yeah, I mean,
Dull it, deal it 2K, 5. I mean, it is still an 8K on a 4 drop with a slightly relevant EX.
it is.
Yeah, it's clearly the worst of all the Archangels,
Right.
but it's fine. Like it makes the cut for my deck, but I'm not like jumping up and down. Like if I had to rate it, it's like a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, and the 5 is like that's just too much. Especially if your opponent just goes over the top of it anyway and you don't get to save them, you just waste the 5. Like, just
Yeah.
feels really, really bad.
Well, yeah. Once again, your opponent has like an Irahal out and just activates it to cancel out the
Yeah.
5. I'm
We'll
just gonna
talk about.
keep pointing out how good Iraha is in
I think
synergistic
she's gonna be good with
points
a
with like
yeah. If you got the
everything.
right cards to match her up,
Oh my
I think
gosh.
you're exactly
Yeah.
right. We can talk about. They've been talked about. I know Josephir featured them. Um, we Alphino and Alice together. So Alice gives Alphino a K and then can dull to haste him, which
Yeah.
the fact that it's 2 CP just
2 CB
super relevant.
backup. You're gonna play it.
And then
Slightly relevant.
Alphino, when he attacks, you dull forwards, all forwards your opponent controls, equal or inferior power to his. So he's a straight 6 with Alice on the field. And then if you have Lava Spider or Golem or something like
Yeah,
that,
obvious lava spider just makes this guy insane.
so it's like dull my whole opponent's board, I swing through for damage, and whatever else I can do, like you're just gonna take. Yeah, that's pretty. That's a game. I might just hold Alphino all game just to win because that's stupid easy win right there.
For sure.
And they're all
That is
commons, right? So you should be
not
able to
wrong.
get both if you see
Yeah.
them.
Well, so the lava spiders are rare, correct?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, there's
Yeah.
plenty. I mean, even like the monk we just talked about. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll give them plus 3K and brave in my main phase. That's fine.
That's a
And
very
then
strong
do it.
combo.
Like they have to have an answer right then, or they're probably gonna lose.
Yeah. Yup, yup. Big fan.
She's pretty sick too.
Who is that? Alba?
Alba, I love Alba.
Oh yeah. I mean, card is good. She's practically a Lua. If you have other Warriors of Darkness, she's absolutely insane. Just play this card.
And she gets synergy off the other. If like if you're already on ice, you
like
have a lot of
like
access to
this.
dull things.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before, where it's like this card is a reason to play this element.
Yeah,
I feel like she's borderline. Like she's not a reason to just bend over backwards to play lightning, but she's real
right.
close.
Well, and the cool thing is, so when your opponent, you pass your turn, your opponent goes with Alba on the field, and they activate all their forwards. Um, they can never safely try and do something to Alba on their turn because if you're, like I said, also on ice and you just have some dull lancers, if you have the Shivas or whatever in hand, and they go to try and do something to her, you just dull 2 or 3 of their forwards, and then she becomes untargetable. So like they just can't deal with her. There's just nothing they can do.
Uh, this next card, the jellyfish, I feel like is a trap, and I feel like this is one of those monsters we were talking about because like it has all the downside of the red mage from fire that we mentioned, where
Yeah.
it's like this card's only really good if you play it and the forward in the same turn, and this
Yep.
is the same scenario here. Like sometimes you'll be strapped on lightning CP, sometimes you just won't have the board to be able to attack. I just see a lot of situations where this is pretty mediocre. Um, the second ability is better, but not anywhere good enough. Like this is just probably a trap 9 times out of 10.
Exactly. I mean, it's again, we mentioned it before. If you have low summon counts, you just don't have a lot of things you can do. Um, just have it sit there and use it offensively, defensively. It's not the
Yeah.
greatest, but it at least gives you a little bit of an out if,
Oh,
you pull, you know, some pretty bad pulls.
oh man. So how bad does this next card hold up? Opus One Hero Odin. Like
You run it for
what?
EX. That's it. Don't
I
hardcast it unless
yeah.
you get Fina, Dark Fina. If you get Dark Fina, you play it. But otherwise, you just flip it over to damage.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. I don't like playing cards just for EX. I will
That's
not put this
completely
in my
fair.
deck. Black Mage is fine. So far, I'm not really impressed with Lightning Summons. Was there one that I
There's a
missed?
couple that coming up, but they're decent at best. We can look at them real
Nope.
quick. So the
No,
removes off of
Ramua and Raiden, I'm not crazy about either.
yeah, I mean removes off lightning backups. Raiden's
And he
off
only
just
hits
pure
active.
backups. Not the greatest. I probably again not going to use Black Mage for his effect. Just going to play him for CP.
Yeah,
2 CP backup.
I'm just looking at what he could pick back up, and honestly, not impressed.
So um,
Sakura.
Sakura. Thank you.
Yeah, Sakura is insane.
So she's terrible, um, in my opinion,
Oh,
in sealed. Um,
you think so? Hmm.
the 8K can be relevant if you need it, I guess, in the deck. But
I think the 8K
where
is
she
all you
shines
need.
is the second effect, I feel like, and the swing potential out of it.
I mean, yeah, and that's never happening in limited, but I think the 8K,
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I think
she,
pay 5 to 8K something active, while
it's a
that's
little
really
overcosted.
underwhelming in constructive standards, actually almost unplayable. I think it does have its niche in limited, um, just because removal's so critical.
Yeah,
If you pull something stupid like I don't know, like 8 or 10 on color summons that all are removal based, I think you probably don't play her, and that's probably not going to happen anyway.
yeah, I'm not fighting to put this in my deck, but
Yeah,
like if I open it and I'm playing Lightning, I'm gonna play it. Um,
that's
but
fair. I think this guy Jake, he kind of shocked me this morning when I read him. I was taken aback a little bit. If he survives one turn, it's like I'm gonna just
yeah,
put unsurmountable pressure on you the rest of the game.
yeah, this guy is going to give your opponents hell if you untap with him. Um, you're just gonna keep giving your dudes haste and then just attacking with much
Well,
bigger
even
dudes.
like Alphino and Alice combo, like you don't even have to give Alphino haste off of Jake. So you could
Yeah,
like
if they just
pitch
naturally
2 to
have.
play Alphino, and he gets the 4K, so now he's at 9, and Alice gives him haste, and then you can play something else for 2 or whatever CP, and that gets 4K power, and then you use Jake to give that guy haste.
Oh
Like,
man,
it
the
just seems
combos,
so good.
the combos. Yeah, I mean he's a hero. You're not gonna see a ton of him, but like yeah, he's very playable.
Yeah,
Um, Shingo, I just no.
it's
I'm
not
just
gonna
gonna
happen.
I'm just gonna
It's
know him.
no, just no.
He's like a 2 out of 5, maybe a 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
Summoner, same thing as the red mage in fire. Just It's
Yeah,
a
but it's
little too
haste and first
niche.
strike, so a
Yeah.
little bit better. I like first strike a little better than Brave, um, just because you have some combo potential. But
Yeah. But the card after it, I'm way more
I
interested
like
in.
this card in
Genome.
limited a lot.
Yeah, this is like what we wish Fina. Like this card's just a mile better than Fina in limited and
Yeah,
half the rarity.
yeah,
So he's just so good. Effectively, because you play him, you hit their dude for 4K, and then you obviously block, and then you first strike. Um, so you're going to kill your opponent's 8K
yep.
as long as it's attacking.
Or even 9K if you, again, like you're on that Iroha or whatever her name is, like that fire card, so you can just kill something that's
Oh yeah,
even bigger out of nowhere.
yeah, absolutely. Like is super awesome.
Yeah, I like him a lot. Yeah, you definitely. He's one of those almost auto includes. Like you'd have to have a really low lightning count to not play him.
I think there is zero world where even if I opened 7 of him that I don't play all 7.
Just play all
That
7.
may sound yeah. I would play 7 of him out of
Yeah,
six
that's
packs.
fair.
Um, Diana, I mean she's fine. She's nothing impressive.
You
You
gotta
have
you
to
gotta
have
have a lot
other,
of those FFL targets is all. If you
but
don't, you don't play her.
there's a good number.
Yeah.
There is a good number as we went over. Death
I
Machine.
wonder what your like thought is on this card because it's a very non-Final Fantasy card in my opinion. I feel like it's kind of an effect that comes from other card games because we've never really had anything like this.
Yeah, so this is actually pretty much a very old and obscure Magic card. It's a
Yeah.
card called the Abyss, and so it's so old it doesn't even say enchantment like normal. It's an enchanted world, um, and it's effectively says the same thing. It's like on your opponent's turn, they break a dude, and then on your turn you break a dude, and then
Right.
you just rinse repeat. Um, and then if nobody's in play, it just kills itself. I like this card. It is really going to be difficult to set up um, in limited. That being said, like good players will be able to play this card, but like if you're new at this game or not like very keen on like how this effect works or how to play around it and how to sequence everything, I would try to avoid it. But this card is phenomenal in the right hands.
So what's like the perfect world for you that you would want to see this card
Obviously your opponent has like two very high value forwards out. You have like one, and you
or
just kind
none?
of can or none. And you just kind of sit back and take the value um, of what it's going to
So
provide. So
it's I'm I need to catch back up or I need to level the playing field.
yeah, absolutely. Like your opponent's going to just be hemorrhaging forwards very quickly.
That's fair
You have to
enough.
be careful that you don't like play it and then immediately get overrun.
Perfectly
But
fair.
like the good thing is you get to immediately break one of your opponent's forwards, um, effectively right after you play it.
Hmm.
Um, and as we went over, there are not a ton of answers for this guy, so he is very good.
So we talked about the summons. I like this card Lid. I read her a few hours ago, and I really like her. Like you get the lightning character from the break zone, so that's usually relevant. So she's still a pseudo 2 CP. But then the fact that you can just straight up discard 3 cards, so you
Oh
just
yeah, there are no timing restrictions. There's
mm-mm.
no card restrictions. There's no anything. Yeah,
She
Lid's
doesn't
very
leave
good.
either.
Yeah,
She just dulls. She doesn't leave. She doesn't go to the break zone. Like that just seems
yeah,
so good to me.
yeah. I will play this card.
So it's
Pretty
literally
hard.
off of a backup 5 CP summon that lets you ping something 8K. I mean I'm I like this card, but I don't like Sakura, but I guess they're kind of the same in a way. So,
Well, this one's also a backup.
yeah.
You do. She is a little overcosted just for a backup, though. Um, but yeah,
I I think it's just always relevant to have onboard removal that doesn't go away.
and then we have some dragoons. Obviously they all get better with other dragoons.
Yeah, so the 3
Um,
CP can get smaller, so either 2 or 1 CP. And then the other one, if you control 3 or more, it gains haste and first strike.
I
Um,
think both of them are fine just because like of their base stats, but obviously you want to try to be
they're
playing
fillers. They're
multiple
solid
dragoons.
fillers.
Yeah, they're on curve. That's what we care about.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
And
Um,
then you got your Turks.
and I don't know. I feel like you probably don't play any of them unless you get all 3 of them.
I mean, the two drop backups are fine because they're two drop backups.
Right.
Like Rufus is a legend. You're very unlikely to get him. It just eh, not
You don't
too
want to
impressed with
use
those
any of
guys.
those abilities on Reno.
No,
Like Rude is only gonna buff Rufus because there's no other job Turk forwards.
other than the
And
starters, I think.
what's that?
Aren't there starters?
No, there's no.
No.
They're
Oh
all Final
wow.
Fantasy 14.
Oh man. Yeah. No.
There's no other Turks yet.
Yeah. Those guys are just pretty bad. I
Yeah.
just wouldn't worry about them.
Um, Rufus is good and playable if you get one of the other two, just because you can search out a 2 CP backup, just to have a vanilla 2 CP backup
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of has a little synergy with them. So that's fine if you get one of the other ones with Rufus. Um, but you'll probably end up getting one or both of the other ones and not Rufus. So they're not going to really do much for you.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get all of them, they're okay. But
Yeah, they're still a little underwhelming if you get all 3, but they're fair.
all
Um,
right.
I do like
Alexander.
Alexander a lot though for limited.
So he hits three or less monsters, so you can hit like Death Gaze and like the frog if the frog is annoying you.
Yep,
I personally don't think this card is impactful enough um, for limited. I do like the first ability to just like get a forward out. If
right.
you're playing a very aggressive water deck, you can get good value out of just like bouncing their guy and then making them have to play him and just trying to get in some early quick damage. Um,
Well, there are some problematic 3 drops. Like, for instance, I know it's a legend, but like Legend Aerith, we didn't really
yeah,
touch on her much, but she has that built-in Minwu effect, and it's hard to play around or play through. So the fact that you can set up your board and then just for one get rid of her for a turn, that's probably enough to swing the game in your way.
no, that's fair. That's fair. I guess I'm a little more on the card than I'm kind of made it out to be.
It's just one of those things where sometimes you just need raw quantity of answers in
Yeah.
the deck if you're
That
playing a
being
lot of
said, the
water.
next card I think is amazing.
Yeah, I love
Ico.
I love Ico.
I, I just I find it. Hopefully, you'll if you get enough time to kind of set up with her. Although now that I'm thinking over it, like the set is pretty aggressive, and you're gonna go pretty quick.
Yeah.
So if you have enough time to set up with her and like play her and get your value, it's gonna be really good because she's effectively a one cost 4K and
Yeah,
gets
and it just
you
the fact that
a
she gets you
relevant
that
card.
summon out of your deck.
Yeah, like she goes and gets you the summon you need.
Yep,
It's so good.
that's exactly right.
The next card though, pretty underwhelming. Even though she is
Don't
finally a
remind me, man.
summoner,
I'm very salty about this card right now.
she's finally a summoner, but she is just not very good. I would just avoid this card. I just wouldn't play any Garnets
Well,
unless
to be
I'm forced
fair,
to.
a lot of the summons in this set deal damage, including the light summon that we'll talk about in a little bit. So the fact, well, I'll just tell you. So it basically at 9k nukes the board.
Yeah,
So the fact
so
that
she
Garnet
would
literally
live.
saves herself and probably everything else you control, forces them to deal with her somehow. And there's a
And
lot of other summons that all deal damage.
yeah, obviously she also counters the ice decks, which will be pretty rampant.
I mean,
So that's
I'm not
good.
like super keen on her, but again, if you're on water, maybe you play one or two of her. Probably
Yeah,
not, but it's
I'm not gonna try to put her
not
in
gonna
my deck.
help you. It's
Yeah.
gonna kind of protect your board a little bit until they can deal with her, which is really underwhelming for me because I really was expecting some big things out of Garnet this set, and it just did not come.
Ooh, the next card, Queena. This ability can be very, very good. It's only gonna be good if you're playing a very aggressive deck.
Yeah.
You're just gonna deck yourself otherwise. You gotta
hmm
be very careful. Um, yeah, man.
I don't want to remove 5 cards honestly,
Yeah, nine.
just to save
Uh,
her, just to save an 8K.
yeah, no, I'm just off that card. Never mind. It's
And
just
it's only
not worth
abilities
playing.
too. If it was abilities and summons, then it's like, okay, you can make a case for it, but I
Yeah.
don't. Mm, I'd
All
I'd
right.
I'd play her as a vanilla 8K and that's it.
Yeah. After that, we got our boy Zidane. Oh, I,
I'm
I
pulling 3 of
don't
him
feel
tomorrow,
like
by the way, just so you know.
I don't feel like anything needs to be said about this card. It is just good.
It's good all around.
I yeah. mm,
You're obviously not going to pull off the S unless you just happen to pull a foil along with your non-foil and just stupid
I'm,
luck.
I mean, we talked about how good unblockable is before.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
it
going into
just
your next turn with like 4 cards in hand.
yep.
Um, yeah, I
If you pull him, you
do
play him.
not have enough words for this card.
Yeah, for sure.
Shamond, he's just. I don't think this card's ability is relevant.
Not really. There's a couple of 1K ping things in this set, but it's
So
just
they actually ruled it. Iraha does not get stopped by this. Just so like if anybody's curious and like looking,
let's go back up so people can see it.
yeah, because it actually like factors in the damage calculation before the Shamond triggers.
Right, you
So
consider all abilities and effects
before and
and
so
calculate damage, and then you check to see if it actually can go through.
yeah, so that's a really big point against this guy. Like, if he could stop Iraha, I would almost like be like, I'd be keen to throw a few of these guys in a deck just to stop stuff like that. But can't even stop that. I'm just not impressed.
Yeah.
Uh, White Mage though, holy cow! Activate all of my forwards, just straight counter the ice deck.
And I
If
think
I'm
you
in
have to
water,
because you know
yeah,
that if people are playing ice, they're gonna be putting in some very, very good controlling cards because all the ice cards are so good in this set.
oh yeah. Yeah, this will be the only card you have to like play around if you're playing
Yep.
Shiva. And then there's Steiner.
So 5 of 5 for a mono art
Yeah, yeah, of course.
and 0.5 of 5 probably for effects. Like when I
Yeah.
saw the art on this and I pulled it up, I was like, okay, he's a 3-drop 7K, he's a knight. Yeah, he's gonna be good. And then I read him and I said, hmm,
Well,
ouch.
so he on the block, his effect is very good.
Mm,
Obviously he just beats an 8K,
right.
which is good. I'm just not crazy impressed with it
Mm,
though.
mm,
Like obviously you can activate him, so very very obvious important play is activate him, pump yourself, and then like play a 9 character, untap him, then attack.
right.
So that way he can
Or attack through and then play your main phase
your
2 9
9 character.
character and he
Yeah,
sits there active. So
and
um,
there are tons of 9 characters in this set, so
Yeah. So I mean, he could be decent in limited. I don't want to put anyone off of him. Like, oh no, you don't want to play him. But
he doesn't feel like a hero, like they
no.
mentioned in chat. Yeah, it
Mm-mm.
definitely doesn't feel like a hero. I'd be, well, I'm a little surprised he is a hero,
Yeah.
but that art,
For
10
sure.
out
And yet we get a common Garnet. Little
of
salty
10.
square, little salty.
We already have a legend Garnet. It's fine. So we got Strago. There is a realm in the set.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's only relevant with that.
So you can play it. Let's pull her up.
Yeah, if you got 2 realms, it's probably fine. What's a realm
She
even do again?
enters. She bounces a monster. Could be decent.
I mean,
Not
obviously,
crazy.
very good against that 5-drop Earth monster.
Yeah.
It's
No kidding.
not too great against Death Gaze because then they're just going to um
Uh,
do
unless you
it.
need Strago, I don't think you play either.
Well, so like crazy next level play is you Death Gaze their dude. They play another dude, same name. You realm your own Death Gaze to make their other dude come back into play, and then they both break. Um,
It actually won't come back into play.
oh, really? I thought that was ruled the other way.
Yeah, no, it'll stay removed because
Oh,
you
okay.
can't forcibly play any
Well,
forwards.
I mean that's fine. Also, like
You could
if
just
it doesn't,
re-death gaze the new target.
then you just read Death Gaze. Yeah,
Yep,
that's fine.
that's
You
fine.
get extra value out of your Death Gaze.
Yep, yep,
I'm
yep.
fine with that. Playing this card with Death Gaze or no, pretty much just Death Gaze. I would only try to play Realm with Death Gaze.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, you have to have some synergies, otherwise she's just not worth it.
Yeah,
I like this astrologian though. It's kind of interesting. Um, I don't feel like it's gonna be great in limited, just because you need the water card to get the power boost.
yeah.
But um, I mean,
It's a nice threat.
3-drop 9K is
I
always
don't think
decent.
we have. Yeah, we don't have a lot of ways to like stack the top of your deck in this set, so wouldn't worry about it. Uh,
This card right here, we'll get to in a second. Whale Zombie. It kind of does that, but again, you're very
yeah,
limited plays. You have a couple of cards that can do it. It's not really
yeah.
worth
You
it.
could like play the Astrologian, leave the whale zombie out, and then just attack and just threaten with the whale zombie in her for like the rest of the game. That seems fine.
Right.
Um,
I'm not crazy about Paladin either. The
Me
damage
either.
transfer.
Yeah.
It'd be fine if it was like 3 water or 4 water in tap, but the fact that you go down a backup from it, it's just, ugh, it's bad.
Yeah, I don't like him. I mean, he's a 2-drop backup and he can do some cute
Right.
things, but whatever.
What about Gramps? I'm gonna be playing some Gramps, I think.
I'll play all the Gramps. I mean, it
Why not?
effectively just cycles out a card out of your hand.
Yeah, why not? Gotta play the Gramps.
Yeah, all
Elderly
about the
man too.
elderly
He's
people.
an elderly
Yeah,
man.
he is an old man. Sick.
So I actually like this card pretty decent.
Probably not for limited. It's only okay for limited
Yeah.
because obviously it's based on your water backups, and then it's also only water forwards you control.
Yep.
Um, I obviously constructed this guy's pretty much just a house, but
Yep. It's just hard to meet that requirement on the water backups because even if you're at 3 water backups, which is a lot, it's still only 3K. Like if
yeah,
you're trying to push through your opponent's board, like 1 or 2K is generally enough to try and get through there. But
yeah. The next card, however, Ninja. Oh my God, am I on this card? I think this
shh,
card
don't give
is
away our
just
text. We might have some Atlanta locals watching.
uh, rip.
Yeah, no,
Well,
I like this guy a lot for
Ninja
limited.
is very good. This card is so good. Just play this card. Just try using it on your opponent's combat step and just enjoy weighing the game from it.
And the art too, man. Like I really like the art.
Oh yeah, the whole like set, the art is just like 10 out of 10, more or less.
Yeah, I
This is a
mean, just
very good
really
set.
great job with the art. Really like him. So we got the
Yeah,
reprint fairy, which is relevant, especially with all the
absolutely.
ice that I'm sure is going to be running rampant.
Yeah, I will snap put 1 to 2 of these in a deck and not even think twice about it. If
So
I'm
we
playing water, easy include.
we went over a couple of lightning dragoons, but for the first time ever,
Freya.
we have a water dragoon and a decent one at that.
Yeah.
So she gets haste when you control some other dragoon, whether it's a job or a card name. And then when she enters or attacks, it loses 2k power. One of the other dragoons has first strike, so that can potentially be very relevant. Um, Letting that damage go through because your opponent doesn't want to lose that forward.
I mean, she's almost like a mini cloud of darkness.
Yeah, that's
Because
exactly.
it's
That's actually pretty good.
airs the field or attack. So like, you can shrink somebody by like 4K if you
4K.
have another dragoon out, and then combo that with some kind of other damage.
Yep,
Very, very good card.
yep. That's actually a
Obviously,
great way
Cloud
to
of
put it.
Darkness.
She's a mini COD, Cloud of Darkness. That is completely fair.
Yeah, whale zombie. I'm gonna try to play a significant. I think this is like a two of. Um, be careful about playing too many more, just because of A, decking, and B, not having enough forwards. But like,
I think
oh
you just bump your deck up to like 45 or 50 cards. Because, like, why? I mean, there's no downside to the card except decking out, and I've never decked out in a sealed game.
yeah, I mean, kind of. You do spin your wheels, so you're not necessarily like progressing your board state while you're playing him. But like your card selection just goes through
Yeah,
the
but
roof while you
because you
play this
can
guy.
use his action ability when he enters, so you can look at those top two and be like, oh boy, those are terrible draws. Put them to the bottom, and then potentially draw a really good card. Like,
Yeah, but what on the scenarios where you just like look at the top cards and they're like, oh, these are great.
yeah, and then just draw it anyway. Like, yeah. Oh, I agree. I'm personally, I mean, I know I play a lot of water, but I'm just personally a fan of cycling. So the fact that I
Oh,
can kind of guarantee or
card
sequence those future
selection is
turns.
king.
What's that?
Yeah, card selection is king.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if like your early game and like you see this guy come up and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm taking that guy." Because that just shuts
Yeah,
down so many cards in this set. And he does have some answers, so you just have to kind of watch for that. Um, a couple of the answers are like legends, so like Noct, for instance, where you're probably not going to have to worry about him too much. Um, just be aware there are a couple of answers that get rid of whether it's bouncing through realm or breaking the monsters outright. But if he stays, he's very good, especially against aggression, like that you just
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
care
obviously,
anymore,
you want to build your deck around not getting affected by his ability.
right? We have Lion. She's making her appearance from Final Fantasy
Yes,
11.
yeah. So, one thing I really apparently in like the game or in 14 or
Uh-huh.
whatever, she's either
11.
like a thief or a pirate or whatever, and so I really like her ability. When she attacks, she draws a card and then discards a card.
Yeah,
That's an ability called looting in Magic, and so
she's a
like
thief, and
yeah,
even
so
though she's job girl, she's definitely a thief, and that's
yeah,
kind of what that's insinuating, which is super cool.
yeah, I really like that the ability is on flavor. I know
Yeah.
people have issues with the, you know,
Shh.
not correct job type, but like, hopefully they do something with that job type. But
Yeah.
um, at least they, I definitely on the positives. Like that's a really on theme ability.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously, if you play her for 3, you're getting very good value. You're getting a good rate for an 8K, and then you also get to attack. I'm very on her for limited. Like
I like
playing
her.
her
I like her,
is
and
your
she's
first
rare. So
forward.
you'll see one. You might even see two. I
Yeah,
definitely like her.
big fan.
Here's another great constructed card that is very underwhelming. Um,
Yeah. So unlike all the other summons like this, it doesn't even have like a baseline of
right.
like how much it reduces. So like if you play this and it only reduces by like 2, paying 3 for that is really bad, and on average you're just gonna hit the
There's just
2 or
better
1.
summons.
Yeah, they're just better things to do. I
Now, if you draw some like really relevant like water monsters and things, I mean, if you're lacking summons, I mean, I think you just have to play some summons in the deck. You don't want to run 0 summons, um, but just a very trivial power trip isn't really gonna do much for you. So here's a legend you definitely want to run.
What? You want to play this card? I don't know.
What?
No, this card's great.
I mean, in limited, I mean, obviously in constructed it's a lot better, but in limited, I feel like just to keep your board state and potentially replay a forward that has a really relevant entry ability. Um, I mean,
Yeah, so it's really important that she doesn't have like a limit on the CP cost of
right.
the forward. So like,
Anything.
you can re-get your 5-drop CP, which is obviously what you want to try to
Right.
do, is like trade your
Or
4-drop back
Fina
up.
if you have just great pull luck.
Oh yeah, yeah. Pull out your Fina. I mean, obviously you don't get your light or dark like giant men, but like no Veritas.
And it's
But
important to note too that it is only during your opponent's turn.
correct.
So if something dies during your turn, then that is a really bad
It's
feel
just
bad.
dead.
She just sits there. So
Yep. All
and
right.
then we'll go over each one of the light and dark cards because I know you haven't seen them. Some people may not have seen them, so we'll just go over each one of those. So both
Yeah.
summons you can only cast on your turn, so just be aware of that.
That's probably fine. I mean, he's a 6-drop if you've taken 5 points of damage, but it is kind of devastating that you can't play this like when your opponent's trying to attack and try to kill you, or like let's say you're at 4 damage and then your opponent puts you a 5, then they put you a 6, and game's just over. You don't get a chance to play it.
Right.
Um, Card's fine.
I mean, a cheeky synergy, like I mentioned, is Garnet with Medine, which is kind of flavorful anyway. But
Yeah,
you know, I don't want to run underwhelming cards just to make decent cards a little bit better. Just the
very true.
power level of the deck diminishes from that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, obviously you can use like your the monk backup as well to like make your 7K a 10K,
right,
so he lives through Medine. That
right.
would be good. But eight cost is a lot. You've got to be killing a lot of your opponent's stuff,
Yeah.
and
Well, and I think if you play that lightning backup that we mentioned, I'll just pull it back up real quick, lid. So it's kind of relevant. Like, okay, well, at least if I have the light card in my hand, I can just straight up discard it to get lid's effect off. So
yeah,
like that's okay. Like worst case scenario, it just I can discard it and I'm fine.
yeah. Obviously, it would get better. All your light and dark cards get slightly better with a way to discard them.
Right.
But honestly, I would be a little cautious on
Yeah.
playing Medine in like every deck.
Yeah. So
But
here's the light legend. So we're getting another rain. So he's a 3-drop 7K, and when he attacks, it's a power trip. So you get plus 2K to all your forwards. Your opponent gets minus 2K to all theirs.
oh
Uh,
wow, he just wins all the combats. Yeah,
yeah,
this
yeah.
guy's great.
Um, I like him in limited a fair amount. Obviously, you're not getting any of the S's off unless you pull the Fire Rains, which also happen to be common. Um,
Yeah, I mean that seems
So
absolutely insane. I mean, you're playing this guy regardless, but
you don't ever want to run cards just for their S, but in this case, I probably would run all of the rain commons I could find just to, like, even if I'm not playing fire, just to, like, break this card and
yeah,
win.
I can see that.
I mean,
Um,
that's just how I look at it, because, like, yeah, he's great,
un-
but if you can abuse the S's, like, oh boy.
yeah, Undermine is so powerful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would probably just play all copies of any rain if you get this one. Like,
That's exactly
holy
right.
cow.
And then
Um,
here's the big boy.
Arc.
So he's a 10 CP.
Ugh, that
It is a
cost.
blanket minus 8k power to
Oh,
everything.
and Fire Rain is a rare,
Oh,
unfortunately.
it is a rare. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
close, but
But Arc is a blanket 8k to everything and draw a card. So even if you have like one sub 8k forward, but your opponent has a couple, you do get the draw off of your own to kind of even the playfield. And the draws should help you um, push back. But the fact that it's 10 and you're not in a synergistic deck with a lot of card draw to begin with, I just I just don't see you playing this
so
card.
like on a neutral board, I honestly like this more than Medine,
I agree.
because I think on average you'll probably kill about three things.
Right.
Um, so ideally, if you kill three things, it's effectively a six cost summon. As long as you're killing two of your opponent's things, or at least one more of your opponent's things than your things,
Right.
I think you're fine.
It's kind of akin to when you would want to play Shantoto. Like if you have
Yeah,
one forward, it's fine if he gets like gone. If you're getting rid of at least two or three, potentially more forwards, especially if they're like trying to rush you down. Because like if you know your opponent, like let's say you start with your 5 cards, so you can't straight cast it, but let's say you draw and your opponent just starts rushing you down with like they hand dump 3 forwards, go. You can just straight up play Arc. Yeah, you lost your whole hand, but guess what? You still get to draw 3 cards. It's
yeah,
actually not bad.
yeah. I'm very much on this card over Medine.
Yeah,
Uh,
but just I don't think he's great in constructed or in limited, just because you have a lot of very inexpensive ways to deal with things, because
yeah,
they did reprints and a lot of other things.
yeah. And then our
But
last guy, Veritas the Dark.
I
I
like
mean,
this guy a lot
I mean,
in
this guy's
all
obviously
formats.
good. Um, yeah, I mean he is so good.
So he enters. Your opponent gets to select, which is always relevant. You don't actually have to choose anything.
Yeah, so this can kill Arden.
Yep. Yeah, so you can combo with something to break their little guy or one of their other guys, and then play him to have Arden as the only target. And then when he leaves, because your opponent's probably going to want him to leave at some point, because he is semi-threatening, um, they select a character. So while cards like, I don't know, some water monsters or things don't really care, um, or like, if you don't really need a lava spider, it doesn't really care.
Yeah,
It
they
could
can sack
potentially be
anything.
backbreaking, because if you have no more forwards left, well, you got to select a backup. Now it's feeling really bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely like the first ability. The second ability I could kind of take or
Just a little
leave.
bonus.
Yeah, yeah. It's an extra bonus. Like the first ability is perfectly fine. If you had no more text, I would still play this card every time I open him.
That's fair.
The
That's
second
entirely fair.
ability is just like, ooh, free gravy. And
Well,
then
and
did we want to
you
go
can kind of
over?
equate like you can kind of equate removal um, to like 3 or 4 CP.
Yeah,
So if you look at him as like a 3 or 2 drop 8K,
yeah,
like
that's
okay,
very
that's
good.
pretty good.
Did we want to go over the starters?
So most of the starters are purely synergistic. You like with Barrett, you need category 7 forwards. With Tifa, she works off Cloud. With Cloud, she works off 7 forwards. So, the same thing with the 14s, like Hien and
I think
Gutsetsu.
there are only like two that are really worth mentioning. Is like
Yeah.
the obviously Lease is insane. That card is very good.
Yep.
I would very very much play that card. It's
And
well
it was
statted and
ruled
then it
that
just gets so
the
good.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, no, you're good. You go.
So it was ruled too that if you have received the 5 damage, um, that everything gets plus 2k, including her, whereas her plus 1k does not apply to her.
Yeah,
It was
so
written out
she's a
properly.
9K at 5 damage.
What's that?
So she's a 9K at 5
At 5
damage.
damage, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get the S. I mean, just being completely upfront because you're only going to pull her foil and you're
Yeah.
not going to pull 2 foil
Two.
S's. It's just not going to happen. So, don't, you're not going to fall into the trap because you're not going to even think about it. But
Yeah.
the other one we were talking about earlier was this Ferdola.
Yeah, Fordola is the other really good forward.
She
Like I would just
may
play this for
be
sure.
the best limited forward in the set.
It still can die. I mean, it dies to removal.
It can still die,
But
but it's a 9k. That's a hard
it
hard thing to kill.
yeah.
And she gains haste for a strike and brave, and it doesn't go away.
Yeah, I like that art. It's very, fitting for like what this card does, where it's just like, hey, I'm a 9K haste first strike.
If you
Brave.
if
Just
you would
answer
see,
me. Answer me or else.
yeah, if you would see her like um her
In
cinematics
game.
in 14 in game and all the story and lore around her, it's like, oh
She's a
boy,
beast.
she's a really just a bad. She's a villain-esque character, but she's like disgustingly strong. And yeah, there you go, you see it. The only other one that I want to quickly mention is Yaguri, just because it's a great opener. No forwards, hasted in, and then if you have decent lightning CP in your deck, like you just outright break anything that blocks her. So like you're just gonna keep swinging until your opponent's like, all right, enough of this,
Yeah,
and just
if you can get two
overpays.
lightning backups and then start attacking with Yaguri, you'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I also do really like Thancred. Um,
Yeah, I'll pull them up.
First Strike is a very good ability, and obviously people aren't really gonna keep this guy on their radar because he's a starter only. So if you get this guy, play him. You know,
So there's 6, including Thancred. There's 6 14 starters, but there's 19 14 forward or cards, if you will, and I think majority of them are forwards. There might be a few backups. So,
yeah.
like
I
you were
mean,
saying, if you
there's
pull him,
enough.
you got
Yeah,
relevant targets that are like commons and rares. They're all commons and rares.
yeah. You've got all the Archangel. Oh wait, no, those are
Those are 11.
11s. Never mind. Both those games kind of blend together for me. Didn't
I'm
play them.
offended. I'm offended. Not really. Um, that's pretty much it. If you guys that are still around, still watching the stream, if you want to ask any questions, what we think of a card, um, what
Yeah, yeah.
if you have a
Well,
question about
actually, so
effects,
so going back to like your first question, like starting off,
yeah.
what color would you play? So like what color are you actually most excited for to
In
play?
limited or in constructed?
Limited, and then we'll go constructed.
I mean, how do you answer ice? I think 90% of the decks that are played tomorrow, at least at our locals, how do you counter ice? Like there's so few ways to counter it.
I
And
feel
like
like
if you just
water is
memorize
running.
those counters and just
Yeah,
watch for the colors, I mean, how do you lose? How do you lose to a triple dull free Shiva?
Yeah.
Like,
I think I'm in the same boat, but my number one pick is actually just going to go to fire, assuming I get Iroha. If I don't have Iroha, I'm not on fire.
that's fair.
If I have Iroha, I will definitely be playing some fire. Like I don't care if I have no other fire cards. Just having Iroha out enables so much. Um,
I
oh,
mean,
what was my thoughts on Arden? Arden is is very good. So I did go over quite a few ways that people can kind of answer him in limited, even which is unfortunate. But um, it was actually I talked a big thing on Arden, so that's really unfortunate. But so for Arden, like the number one thing that you want to do when your opponent like plays out in Arden is like take advantage of the fact that they just spent 7 CP on a big forward and just like try to flood the board with as many forwards as you can. So like I would almost try to like play out your hand of a bunch of forwards because they probably just played out their hand playing one forward. And then after that, you're just gonna kind of take advantage of the fact that you can sacrifice your characters and then just swing through him because that you're gonna slowly win that war or lose that war of attrition against Arden. So you really have to capitalize on him ASAP and really kind of push the pressure on your opponent. But obviously, Arden is a pretty good card because it forces your opponent to play something like that. If they don't have enough forwards, they're gonna be a really really rough spot.
I think timing is everything in limited. Like any card is debatably good, broken, or bad in certain situations, and that timing is so critical that if you do it kind of when your opponent's in a semi-weak position and you just slam this guy down, like yeah, I mean you're probably gonna win. If your opponent has board advantage and like they got cards and they got characters and monsters on board and stuff, like it literally does nothing.
Yeah, they're just gonna sack it back up
Yeah,
and win
yeah.
the game anyways, which is bad.
Um,
Um,
what are your highlights in
Highlights from
Fire and
Ice and
Ice?
Fire. Yeah, unfortunately, I was muted. Once again, Iraha, but Archangel HM is very powerful. It's gonna put a lot of pressure on your opponents, being that 9K forward. Brunhilde is always good just because it's a summon. Speaking of ice and fire, one of the best things that, like, if I open this card, I will be playing ice and fire is Lastwell. His ability, I don't know if you could hear because I was muted, but holy cow, this guy just
It's good.
he does everything. A repeatable Genesis ability. I definitely mentioned the fact that you can respond to his initial enter the battlefield effect with the fire trigger, so you can target something and then in response activate for the fire CP to dull and freeze somebody even on entry, and then obviously you do that every attack, and it gets very degenerate very quickly.
It's yeah,
Um,
very very oppressive.
Obviously he's a hero, so I'm not like uh, you can't always get him, but Shiva was amazing. Shiva, the 4 drops Shiva rare.
You're playing the Shiva. I mean,
Yeah,
you just have to.
like this is a reason to play ice, and it's a reason to win the game,
Card
and
is
it's
so
so
freaking
good.
gorgeous too.
Um,
Like that foil is just gonna look so good.
and then another card that I'm very big on that I don't know if everybody else will be is the Archangel GK in ice. 9K that freezes all of your opponent's forward. It effectively buys you a whole turn uh, against your opponent's forwards. It will really steamroll against some people. Like that would be just if I had to pick just a few cards. Those would be them. Anything different for you, Lawrence?
In Ice and Fire, I mean, you know how I feel about Shiva already.
Yeah,
Um, you guys heard me about Vivi. Like, if you just pull a bunch of nine, like you get a bunch of water cards and not 9 characters. Like, you just play that card because it's just so much power on entry, like 7k, potentially 10k, like for one, and a little dude that sticks around after, like super good. We touched on Yutsuyu. There's only a handful of cards in the whole set that she can't target and make unblockable. Arden obviously being one, but you can dump a character for that. So there's really only like I would say like 5 or less maybe.
Yeah, and some are like heroes and legends. So
Yeah. So it's like you just don't worry about it and you play her. She just seems really good. Um, let's see what else. Cloud's fine. Like I said, if you're running, if you pull the Cloud Legend, like you're running 50 cards because you want to use that ability once, maybe twice.
oh yeah,
Um,
the other guy you were very big on. I'm also big on him, but Time Mage.
yes, in Ice, the Time Mage is pretty sick because you can just
Yeah,
dump whatever
he's just
card
a
you want.
common.
So like
And
if you
he's
want to run like the lighter or dark hero summons, you can just dump them. If you're like, I don't need these, I'm gonna win. Just play this guy.
yeah,
Um,
it's not dulling any forwards though.
oh, duh. You have a the six. Nah, the six isn't really gonna do much. So, but the
No.
fact that you can discard cards for off
And you're probably
colors that
never
you don't have
discarding
any way
Rain,
to play them.
the Light Rain. You're never discarding him to Time Mage.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Unless it's literally gonna win you the game that turn.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I think ice is very strong. I think fire is very strong. I think fire has more direct counters. Just because you can dull and freeze things in ice, you can throw down this little water dude that I'm very keen of, and I can never remember his name. Melted Gemini, I guess,
Yeah.
or Melted Gemini. Like he seems pretty good as a counter.
I think he's what Zorn and Thorn turned into. He was that thing you fought in like the ice cave, I believe. It's been
Yeah,
a minute.
yeah, that's the Zorn and Thorn like combination demon monster thing. Um, and out of the
Uh
legends, which is your favorites respectively? Sam, I'll let you take that first.
I mean Legends of Dane, yeah, I mean it
As a favorite for you?
I I yeah,
Wow.
that guy's insane. I like Legends of Dane way too much. Like an unhealthy love for that Legends of Dane.
Dang. Um, I like my water cards. I'm gonna Zidane and Lunafreya are just really cool. I really like them. Both in limited and constructed. I think they're very neat. Um, um, I'm not as keen on Sakura in limited, but I think she's pretty sick. Is going to be pretty sick. Same thing with Noct. Um,
Yeah.
I would give my MVP to Fina, honestly, even more so than Zidane. I think she is just the things that I want to do with her in a couple different decks. I just feel like she's just so good.
Yeah.
Um, Dark Fiend is cool. I'm not an ice player usually, but I might be playing some ice this set. I just think they're getting so many really cool utilities. Um,
Well, so like my biggest problem with Darkfina, like at least in constructed, is she's a 7 drop, so she's like fighting with my Sephiroth. Like,
well, it's two very different
Sephiroth,
decks, right?
yeah,
Where you're controlling hand size and then trying to control the board state. You know, I think Dark Fina goes in a deck that does the exact opposite. They want to either do straight removal or control, the board state of the game, and they don't really care so much about hand size.
that's fair. I mean, you get really good value by flickering her as well with Renoa. So
Renoa, yeah, I mean that's sick. Like even if you're ahead on damage and you're not even close to 5, like you could just play it, search out the summon, then play Renoa, and then cast it. Like, it's a little clunky, but like again, if it wins you the game, who cares?
Yeah, she's also a 9K, so that's always good.
Yeah, 9K is always good. 9K is always
All
good.
right. Well, it looks like we've gotten through all the questions. Thanks everybody who was tuned in, and you know, have a good time at your pre-release. This looks like a great set, a lot of fun stuff.
I'll leave you guys with the best card in the set. There she is.
I'm finna.
All right, guys. It's been real. We appreciate it. A little bit long, but we'll definitely catch you guys. And oh, as a note to anybody that is currently watching or watches this later, because I'll be loading it up to our YouTube channel. I'm going to be live streaming to this channel tomorrow at our pre-release. I'm gonna crack all 6 packs and then build the deck, essentially going over some of the things we talked about, and just kind of show you guys, our thoughts in action. So definitely tune in for that. Our pre-release is at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so that should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I just have to like block Sam somehow so he doesn't see my polls.
Oh no, that I gotta watch. Gotta get the leg up.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, guys, it's been real. Take care.
Yep. Bye.